Hey, I'm Josh and I'm going to be taking you through this guitar lesson designed for complete beginners, so it's an introductory lesson. I've been playing guitar for about 10 years, just over, and in that time I've had a lot of fun and I've taught quite a few different people how to play guitar. I've learned from that I really do think anyone can learn to play the guitar as long as you're willing to put in the time required to practice regularly, and if you are willing to do that, it can be a really rewarding experience, so I would recommend it. So in this lesson we're going to introduce the different parts of the guitar and talk about what they do, what their function is. We're also going to talk about the tuning of the guitar and how to tune it. We're going to look at how to hold a plectrum and also the other techniques available instead of using a plectrum to play the guitar. I'm going to show you how to read tab, and this is going to open up a huge catalogue of resources and information that's available for you on the internet. And finally we'll go through a couple of exercises designed to build up finger strength and dexterity, and this is crucial for learning to play the guitar. They're really simple exercises, hopefully to get you at least using your fingers just before we meet up and have a lesson. Finally, when we finish up with this lesson, we'll talk about what we can expect to cover in future lessons and yeah, what you have to look forward to in the future lessons. So here we go. Okay, so the parts of the guitar. I'm going to start here with what's called the head of the guitar, and on the head of the guitar you have these tuning dials. You turn these to change the tuning of the strings of the guitar. Here we have this strip is called the nut, and this is used to hold the strings of the guitar in place. Then we have this is called the neck of the guitar. You have the back of the neck. That's usually where you have your thumb for a lot of the time as you're playing, depending on the technique that you're using. Sometimes you'll have your thumb up out here, but generally it's going to be on the back of the neck. The front of the neck is what we call the fretboard, and running along the fretboard you have these little strips, these metal strips. These are called frets, and as we start here we have what we call fret 1, fret 2, fret 3 and so on. And the frets change the pitch of the guitar, so the pitch is lower at the bottom of the fretboard, and as we work our way up the fretboard it gets higher. We have these what are called marker dots or inlays, and these are used to just help you navigate your way around the fretboard. For example, if you want to jump to the 7th fret, rather than having to count down, you'll get familiar with which marker indicates the 7th fret, and you can jump there straight away. So if we keep going down, we then get to the body of the guitar. This is generally what you're going to be using to hold the guitar. It's also especially important with acoustic guitars because it's the shape of the body and the material that the body is made of that's going to generate the sound. This here is called the bridge of the guitar, and again it helps hold the strings in place. And yeah, we have, last but not least, the strings of the guitar, and it's these strings that you're going to be playing and contacting to actually play the guitar and make the sound that you want to make. So that's the parts of the guitar. Next we're going to talk about how to tune the strings of the guitar. Okay, so tuning the guitar. First we need to know the names of the strings of the guitar. So if we start with this, the thickest string, this is the lowest in pitch string, and it's called the bottom string. If we go up to the thinnest string, it's going to be the highest in pitch, and it's also called the top string. So if you can get your head around that it's the thickest bottom string or the lowest in pitch, and this is your thinnest string, it's the top string, it's the highest in pitch. If you can get your head around that, that's great. So starting at the thickest, the bottom string, this is called the E string. Then we go to the A string, the D string, the G string, the B string, and an E string. So both the top string and the bottom string are both tuned to the same note of E, but one of the strings is lower than the other. But it's essentially the same note, so they sound similar, as opposed to sounding like different notes. That's like a more muddied sound almost, whereas this is sort of sounds like it's the same sound coming at you but at a different pitch. But don't worry if that doesn't make any sense to you. So to tune the guitar, there are a number of different options. You want to use a guitar tuner, and you can download them for free onto your phone as an app. There's loads of options, or you could go on the internet and find a guitar tuner, or you can buy one from a shop. They're usually about £5 to £10, maybe £20 for a fancy one. Also, some guitars have built-in tuners as well, and the tuners work in a couple of different ways. There are some tuners which will just produce the sound of a particular note, so you'll press a button on it and it'll make an E sound or an A sound, and you can then try and match the guitar to that sound. Other tuners have built-in microphones, and they will hear what sound you're playing on the guitar and tell you where you need to go, whether you need to tighten it or loosen it to get the sound that you want. So the key thing when you're tuning a guitar is you want to go slow. Take it very slowly and just really try to avoid over tightening the guitar. If you tighten the string, any one of the strings too much, it might break, and then you'd have to go and change your string or pay someone to change the string for you, and you won't be able to play the guitar. So just go really slowly, take your time. What will help you to tune the guitar is a little bit of knowledge about the notes that we use in music. So this is just a really brief description of it. The notes run like the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it goes back to A. So for example, if we start on E, if we've tightened the E string too much, it's going to go up to F. If we've tightened the E string way too much, it's going to go from E to F to G, and then it might snap. So if you tighten it, the notes increase. So again, just to make it very clear, A tightened will go to B, tighten more to C, more to D, and you keep tightening it. Again, if you go from an F, tighten it to a G. When you tighten a G, it'll just go up to an A, and then A tighten to B. If you loosen it, you're going to go, say, from C will loosen to B, so it's going down in pitch as you're loosening it to B. Loosen it more, it's going to go to A will loosen to G. So if you maybe just re-watch that, what I've just said, just to get your head clearly around it, hopefully that will help you avoid tightening the guitars too much. But also that's a very basic and a very basic description of musical notes, so there is a lot more to it than that, but if you can get your head around that, that's really great. So what we're going to do now, just to help you tune it, like I said, I would recommend using a tuner, but I'm also going to play the strings for you just a couple more times, just so you can actually tune to this video if you don't have something available straight away. So we'll start on the E and then go through to A, D, and so on. So E, A, D, G, B, and finally E, top E. So just go really careful, you don't sharpen it too much, and you should be fine. Good luck. Okay, so now you're tuned up, we're going to get round to some actual playing of the guitar. So first of all, we'll talk about how to hold the guitar. So this is a right-handed guitar because I'm right-handed, and so you'll notice with your guitar most of them have this sort of groove here, and that groove you just use to sit it on your right leg if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you'll need a left-handed guitar, although left-handed people, you know, plenty of famous left-handed rock stars have learnt to use right-handed guitars, so if you're left-handed and have a right-handed guitar, don't let that put you off. But if you are left-handed and have a left-handed guitar, you'd have it resting on your left leg, and because I've just turned this around, I now have the finished string closest to me up here, whereas if it was an actual left-handed guitar, this would be the thickest string closest to you up here, like it is when I have this towards me here. You would always want the thickest string closest to you up here and the finished string furthest away. So yeah, guitar, right-handed guitar, right leg, and you're going to use your right hand. This is going to be down here for strumming or picking here, and you're going to have your left hand, this is again for right-handed people, playing holding the different frets down. The combination of that together, you're going to make the sound of the guitar. So you've probably noticed when I've been doing this, I've just been using my fingers, and to do that I've just been using my index finger nail, and it's not a very long nail, you don't need to grow your nails really long or anything, and I've just used it. If you just lightly rest your left hand across the strings on the fretboard here, anywhere on the fretboard is fine, and just get your index finger and maybe have your thumb behind it to support it, and just brush straight down, you should get a similar sound. That's okay to do, you know, for complete beginners. I think the main thing is just that you start playing something. So some people, when they start, they really don't like using a plectrum. So if it turns out you don't like using it, that's fine to use your index nail, or use all your nails if you like. You can hear the difference. But I would recommend at least trying a plectrum as well. And if you find with a plectrum, I'd recommend trying using your nail, because I think it's good to be able to play it in a number of different ways, because the sound that you'll get from it is going to be complementary for different styles of music that you might want to play in the future. So if you learn both now, that's going to be for the best. So a plectrum. So I use a 1mm plectrum. I think that's a good place to start, but that's quite thick. So that's like, you know, you could get quite a loud sound if you start strumming it really hard. Not that I'd recommend strumming really hard, but you know, anywhere from sort of a 1mm maybe down to sort of a 0.6mm. That's quite a thin one. Buy a few plectrums, they're not very expensive, and you can try them in different ways. So I'm going to show you now how to hold the plectrum. So let's have a look. Okay, so to hold the plectrum, you want to rest it just like this on your index finger, sort of almost on the side. It's not right on the side. It's not like this. It's just like that. So it's not like my finger is flat either. So you'll rest it like that and put your thumb straight over it. So I'll show you from that angle there. So you can see my finger here. Make it clear for you. You see my finger is not poking out the front of the plectrum, and but it's not really far back underneath either. It's sliding forward like this. So I've got maybe just under a centimetre of the pick exposed, and you could actually even hold it even closer towards the edge. But the main thing is that you've got this this sort of. Let me show you from this angle. So you can see it sticking out like that. Your thumb is over the top and the index finger, you're almost forming a right angle between these two. You want to hold it firmly, but not too firmly. If you hold it too firmly, you're going to get a really solid sound of the string. It's going to be too loud. It's going to be like. But if you hold it sort of firmly, so it's not going to fly out, but loosely. You know, how hard you hold the plectrum is going to give you volume control. And I'm playing it the same both times, just holding the plectrum tighter to make it louder. So firm but gently is the key for holding the plectrum. So when we're going to use the plectrum for playing the strings, like I said, you're creating that sort of right angle holding the plectrum between your thumb and the index finger pointing forwards towards the tip of the plectrum, and the tip of the plectrum is going to be pointing directly towards the guitar, towards yourself when you're holding it, and that should sort of line you up nicely with the plectrum. And as you brush against the string, that's all you really do, you just sort of brush against it. You don't need to be having the plectrum sort of really much past the string. You know, maybe just sort of less than half a centimetre of it makes contact with the string. If it, you know, if you say contacting the string, say a centimetre into the pick, that's just giving you less control. So you really want to just contact the string with the pick just at the tip of the pick. So hopefully now you've got some idea how to hold the plectrum. But you know, the way to hold the plectrum does vary a little bit from individual to individual. And one of the reasons that I'd really recommend for complete beginners to have some lessons with a tutor, you know, is because that's someone who's qualified to show you the right way to play the instrument, and they can sort of help pick out if you're doing anything wrong. Obviously I can't see the way you're doing this, and so when we meet face to face it'll be much easier to make sure you're doing it right. So if how you're doing it feels wrong or you don't like it, don't worry, just carry on, try it for a little bit, try maybe using the index nail like I mentioned earlier. Don't let it put you off. It's, you know, nothing's too critical at the moment. And this is really, again, the whole lesson is just designed to get you doing something before the first proper lesson. But again, really can't stress enough, it's so important to have lessons with a tutor to avoid bad habits, you know, build strong foundations and that sort of stuff. So we're going to talk about right hand technique and essentially how this right hand in the pick contacts the strings. I'm just going to go through a couple of different techniques for you to practice the exercises when we get to them later. The first way is holding the pick, as we said. I'm just going to do what we call down strums or down strokes, and that's just, if you just watch, it's just, you see I'm just going down against the string and coming back up and down again. You can also do up down strokes, which is just, well, so I'm actually going down and then up on the string as well, down and up, just downs. Again, both good techniques worth practicing, and depending on the sort of style of music you want to play, both of those are useful. One's not necessarily better than the other. And like I said, if you don't like using a pick or it seems you're not sure if you're holding it right, feel free to use the index nail like we mentioned, or maybe you've seen people using their thumb, and you can do that as well, that's fine. All of these are useful, you know, useful to know. So it's not like one is right and one is wrong. When I was doing the thumb there, I was just using the sort of top left corner of my thumb, and not the nail, but the actual thumb itself to do that. And yeah, give all three of those a go. It is worth noting at this point, if you're particularly keen on playing the electric guitar and that's what you really want to learn to play, put a little bit more effort into using a plectrum, as a plectrum is more required when you play an electric guitar to get a sort of cleaner sound, rather than using, you know, your index nail or your thumb. But again, use all three a little bit. It's good to be able to at least do each one of those different techniques. Okay, so the first exercise that we're going to do I've called the open string exercise for your right hand, and this is what it should look like. All of these exercises, the key thing is don't try and go as fast as possible. You want each note that you're sounding to sound clear and be of an even length, you know. So I'm playing this, it's, you don't want it to be like, you know, an even transition from each note. You know, you don't want any big pauses when you're changing the strings, so from the E to the A, nice and smooth, rather than try and get everything sounding nice and evenly. So that's quite a lot to practice, but the key thing that's going to help you with is being able to pick the string that you actually want to pick on. So again, just to break that exercise down a little bit more for you, the way I've played it, I've been doing that up, down, right hand technique that we spoke about, but you could also do the just down stroke technique, and again I'm using a pick, but index, nail, thumb, either is fine. So all I'm doing is I'm doing 4 plays of each string. I'm picking each string 4 times and then moving down to the next one. So I just want to do it even slower for you, just to really highlight how to do this. So starting on the lowest, the thickest string, and then from the E to the A to the D, just working the way up and then back down. And I'm doing the up down technique now. Now I'll do the down. And you'll notice that I haven't been worrying about stopping any of the strings ringing as I move away from them and play a different string. That's not something you need to worry about for now. The main thing is giving you the ability to move between the strings as you're playing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at that same exercise that I've described, but we're going to have a look at the how to read tab, how to read that exercise as it's shown in tab, and you should be able to find that in the lesson notes that accompany this video lesson. So we're going to talk about tab. Okay, so what we're looking at now is a mixture of standard musical notation, that's what's on the top, and underneath that, that's what we call tab or tablature, where it says tab, T-A-B. So as we look at the tab, we're going to ignore what's above it. We're going to ignore that standard music notation in this lesson. We really don't need to worry about that. But the reason you do sometimes have tab and standard music notation shown together is because it gives you a better sense of the rhythm that the music should be played at, whereas tab doesn't always very clearly indicate the rhythm or the timing that you should be playing in. But we don't need to worry about that for now. We're just looking at that lower tab section, and as we look at that, we can see that it's made up of 6 horizontal lines, and those 6 horizontal lines represent the 6 strings of the guitar. So that top line represents the top string, so if we remember, that's the thinnest string on the guitar, the one that gives you the highest pitch. And as we look down to the bottom string of that, those 6 horizontal lines, that represents your bottom string on the guitar, the lowest in pitch string, the thickest string. We can also see there's some numbers written on each string. So if we start at the beginning on the left hand side of the tab, we can see that on the bottom string, so that's representing your low E string, we can see it says 0 0 0 0. So those numbers indicate what fret you should be playing. Because it says 0, that means that you're not holding down any frets, you're just playing it in the open position. If it was indicating a fret, it might say 1 or 7 or any kind of number, but it says 0, so that's open string. So we can see that you play the open string on the low E 4 times. Then as we keep reading it along from left to right, we can see that we actually move up a string, so that's to the A string, and again it's 4 zeros, and again we can see it's all zeros, and so we move from 4 zeros on the A up to 4 zeros, 4 open strings on the D, up to the G, up to the B, up to the top E, where we then go back down to play another 4 on the B, down again another 4 on the G, 4 on the D, 4 on the A, and finally we finish with another 4 on that bottom E. And tab really is that simple. It's designed to be a really simple way of showing you what string to play and what fret to play. It's as simple as that. With a bit of practice, you should very quickly be able to look at a piece of tab and play the music. It does always help if you have an idea of what you're trying to play sounds like before you look at tab, and that way you don't have to worry about the rhythm too much. However, if in future lessons you would want to look at learning to read music notation, that is something that is not essential, and there are plenty of really successful musicians who have no idea how to read musical notation. but it's something that some people find really interesting, and it can help you play other, if you want to play more classical instruments like the piano, you'd need to learn to use how to read music notation, and it's just a good thing to sort of enrich your musical knowledge. But for now, you don't need to worry about that at all, and tab can take you really, really far in learning the guitar. Okay, so the next exercise we're going to look at is the fretboard exercise for the left hand. And the focus of this is on the left hand and the fretboard, whereas the last exercise we were looking at the sort of the right hand going down the strings and the plectrum. So this is what the exercise should look and sound like. I'm going to play that through again for you, a little bit slower, before we talk about what that exercise is actually made up of. Okay, so looking at this tab for this second exercise for the left hand, the main difference we can see as we look at it is that instead of all the numbers being zeros representing the open strings, we now are actually fretting. We're fretting on the guitar. So you can see as you look at it on the top line, it seems that they're all the same. We're going from starting on the bottom E, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then again on your A, first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, same again on the D, on the G, on the B, and on your top E. Then as we go down to the bottom collection of tab, we can see that instead of starting on 1, 2, 3, 4 like we were previously, we're now going 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you imagine the 1, 2, 3, 4 as we were doing that was using our index, then our middle, then our ring, then our little finger, whereas 4, 3, 2, 1 is actually starting on the little finger, then the ring finger, then the middle finger, and then the index finger, and as we go from that top E onto the B again, we're going to start on the little finger, 4, 3, 2, 1, then to G, 4, 3, 2, 1, the D, the A, and the E. Essentially the rules of it are the same. The strings are still represented by the same horizontal lines. It's just using these different numbers to represent different frets that we want to hold down. Okay, so because we're using the left hand in this exercise, there are a few more things we need to concentrate on rather than just the right hand. So with the left hand, what you can't see as I was playing the exercise is that my thumb, as I mentioned earlier, was on the back of the neck, and it was acting almost as an anchor for my fingers. It was, as I was playing each fret, I was almost squeezing together my finger and thumb. I was just giving additional support to it. But that thumb, it's fairly stationary. It doesn't move each time you move the fret, but it also is not completely fixed. If you naturally feel the thumb wanting to move as you're moving across the strings, that's also fine, but just remember the thumb is there to give you additional support. So when we're holding the fret down, as we're holding down these frets, you can see in the lesson notes, going from the first fret, the second fret, the third fret, the fourth fret. As we're going down each fret, we're not in the bottom part of the fret, we're sort of in the top part of the fret, but we're not on top of the fret line itself. And just remember, when I talk about the bottom of the fret and the top of the fret, generally when you're talking about the guitar and the neck, this area is, we're considered lower down. Here is lower down as the bottom, and as you go up, that's towards the top. Again, this is just a pitch thing, but really what I'm saying is you want to be in the top third of each fret as you're playing, but not on top of the fret. But just experiment and you'll find where you're getting a better sound. You know, if you are playing it, if you're not using your thumb correctly or you're not positioning your finger on the fret correctly, you could get something that's called fret buzz. You hear that? And that's a bad sound. You don't want that. That's not helping you towards a sort of a clean sound when you get in the note. Also, what will help you get a clean sound is using the right part of your fingers to actually hold down the string on that right position of the fret. So I will show you. We want to hold it not quite on the fingertip. It's not like here. It's more just here. So not here, right at the top. Just here, and certainly not here. We don't want to be holding the string with the sort of more fatty part of the finger. It's just about here, and on each finger again it's the same. But again, just practice with that. Keep in mind which bit of the finger you want to be using. It's especially important to use the right bit of the fingertip, just because as you get to be playing more complex guitar pieces, if you're using the wrong part of your fingertip, you might find that you're unintentionally muting or blocking other strings with your fingers. So make sure you do use the right part of the fingertip for playing. Also, what you may have noticed as I was playing that is I was following something called the finger per fret rule, just in the sense that my index finger was always playing the first fret, my middle finger was always playing the second fret, my ring finger was always playing the third fret, and my little finger was always playing the fourth fret. And because we don't use our little finger especially much in day-to-day life, you may find it a bit difficult as you're holding it down. You know, you might be okay with the index and the middle, the ring, but maybe you'll struggle a little bit with that little finger. Again, just practice. These exercises are designed to help you build up finger strength. But if you do find it particularly difficult, what will be easier is, whereas this exercise, as you'll see on the sheet again, always starts on the first fret, move it to any fret you like, as long as you keep the position the same. You know, we could try it starting on the 5th fret. And you might find that's a little bit easier as it's less of a stretch than up here. You will also notice there's this sort of natural bend appearing in my wrist here. And you know, that is okay. You don't want to be having your wrist not bent and be trying to sort of play it with a straight wrist. That's going to be very difficult. You want to naturally bring the wrist forward and down slightly, but not too much. You don't want to, you know, you don't want it to be forward, almost in front of the neck. You just want to be a little bit behind the neck, but just with a natural bend in it. The key thing is you can hurt your wrist if you do this wrong. So the main thing is just do it little and often when you're practicing the guitar, especially as a complete beginner. I would say, you know, 20 minutes at a time and then stop. And you know, if your wrist feels like it's aching a bit, just take a day off, that's fine. But like I said, a natural bend in the wrist and using your thumb and your fingers to pinch together, that's going to help you prevent straining your wrist. So a summary of the advice I've given in terms of how to get a clean sound while you're playing the guitar can be found on the lesson notes. So you know, if you're playing for any of these exercises and you find that you're getting fret buzz and you're not sure why, or that it just doesn't sound right, you know, you can keep referring to the things that I've mentioned, like making sure your thumb is there as an anchor, that you're playing the fret within the right, you know, the right portion of the fret, that you're using the right bit of your fingertips. You know, so keep, you know, if it doesn't sound good, keep practicing those things. Make sure you're doing everything right. For people watching this who've gone through it all really quickly and you're really happy with how it sounds and you're getting a clear, even sound, in the lesson notes I do show the major scale. I'm going to show you how to play that now, but I'm not really going to talk about it anymore. But you know, if you've really found everything so far so easy, this is a great thing to practice, you know, reading tab. Again, another way of building up finger strength and dexterity, and it's also a little bit more musical, so it can be quite fun to play. So this is what it should look and sound like. And hopefully you'll notice that I'm using that finger per fret rule again, so make sure you do that as well. I also think it's really important at this point just to stress that there is quite a lot of information contained in this video, and you know, if you've just watched it once straight through and you feel a little bit overwhelmed, I wouldn't be surprised. I think most people would be quite overwhelmed at this amount of information coming at you at once. You know, it's a lesson designed, the video designed to be paused, to be re-watched and practiced. You know, just like anything with the guitar, you know, you don't just do something once and then that's it. You do need to practice it again and again. So consider this a resource which you can watch a number of times and practice, and if you forget something, you've got the notes, but also you can go back and yeah, rewatch. So don't be overwhelmed that if you feel like you don't understand everything straight away, and if you do have any questions, feel free to get in touch. Okay, so that's the end of this first lesson for complete beginners. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and you know, it really is just the beginning. So if we carry on and do more lessons, the next thing we'd look at, well, the first thing we'd look at in the next lesson would be to ensure that the technique you've started to develop from this lesson is correct. You know, everyone is a little bit different. Everyone has slightly different shaped and sized hands. So you know, we refine it. Make sure that you're holding the frets in the right way. You're holding the pick in the right way, and you're holding, you know, your thumbs positioned right. All these sort of things. Just really to help you progress as quickly as possible. You know, if you're doing the right technique, you're gonna get better faster. But also it's to prevent injury as well. If you form bad habits, you can end up injuring yourself, especially injuring your wrist. So again, that's probably the most important reason for actually having some lessons with a tutor. After that, we would probably look at expanding on the left hand technique that we've gone over, just because that can be varied in a lot of different ways, and it's just great again for building up that strength and dexterity in the left hand and in the right hand, which is essential if you want to play sort of more complex guitar parts. So you know, just by varying the order of the frets you're playing, you can come up with something quite interesting sounding but also quite challenging. So you know, I've been playing for 10 years and I still do it on a daily basis. Something like just there's so many variations you can do, but they'll be really helpful. So we'll also look at going over some basic chords in that next lesson as well. You know, chords are a really fun and exciting part of the guitar to give you a fuller sound, and you know, maybe even allow you to go off and start creating your own songs. So hopefully by the end of the next lesson we could look at you having to doing something like something like that. Also, we've spoken a little bit about the language of music in this lesson, you know, when we were talking about tuning up and that sort of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We'll look more into that. There is a, you know, that can go really far, and it can be, if you find it quite interesting, you know, you can read a lot of books about it. But it will help you to understand the guitar more and help you create new sounds when you understand it a little bit. It's also a universal language of music. You know, you'll be taking your first steps into learning something which is universal. It'll help you understand, you know, by the end of the next lesson you'd understand why there are white keys and black keys on a piano, and the information you learn is not just applicable to the guitar, it's applicable to all instruments. So you know, it's quite an exciting first step in music. We'd also talk about your particular hopes while you're learning the guitar. You know, what you'd like to aim for. Maybe there's a song you'd like to learn, or maybe you'd like to do the grades, something like that. You know, we'll talk about what you'd like to get out of the lessons. You know, you're the one who needs to be happy with learning the guitar, and essentially we'll just try and make sure that you enjoy it, and we'll refine future lessons after that according to sort of what your interests are. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions about this lesson, or you want to get in touch about booking future lessons, just get in touch via the email, which can be found in the video description. Okay, thanks very much.